Remember the other week when I said this? It's very hard for me to not... I'm a lover of fishing tackle. Although I'm not a tackle tart, I do like having the tools for the job. And it's very hard for me not to go out and buy the latest distance rod or whatever. That's right, I couldn't help myself. I've had to buy a new rod, and not just one, I've ended up buying two. So when I thought I'm going to get into this sort of fishing, I didn't realise how addictive it was going to be. It's got right under my skin, and I guess it's I want to call it the technical element of being able to cast out a long way, getting your feeder right, getting your pellets right, getting your cast and getting your feeder to go in nice and like plop in. And it's led me down a bit of a rabbit hole, I'm not going to lie. Now, the fishing is really enjoyable. It's hard fishing. You know, you're getting, like last week in the match, you come forth with 5 fish. So it's hard. But one thing that having so few bites does like teach you in your mind is that you've got to be 100% confident in your bait. You've got to be 100% happy with how your feeder's gone in the water, and you've got to be able to hit those distances. Now, contrary to popular belief, Boddington isn't all about chucking 200 metres. I mean, nobody can do that. It's more about, from what I could see from my few visits that I've been, getting your feeder to go into the water nicely, fishing effectively at sort of ranges between 60 and about 90 metres. Don't get me wrong, there's bound to be days where going extreme range is helpful, but from what I've seen so far, it's more about fishing like 10 out of 10 on that sort of range from 60 to 90 metres. And if you can get your feeder to go in nicely every single time at that kind of range, then you're going to catch more fish. And it may be the difference between catching 5 fish and 8 or 9 fish, or maybe even like 2 or 3 fish on a hard day when others around you are either blanking or catching 1. And I didn't feel like my feeder was going in very nicely last week, even though it's probably exaggerated because you're fishing on a flat calm lake. But a couple of days after, I actually went back and had a bit of a session with Mick Viles. Mick Viles was fishing for roach, and I took my kit with me and I was fishing at sort of 80, 90 metres, and I couldn't get my feeder to go in properly. And it screwed my head up, and I thought I need to get the kit for this. Like, I'm fishing a 14-foot rod when others are fishing 13-foot rods. I needed the kit. So I've gone out and bought a 13-foot, 4-metre Monster Extreme rod, which is really good value actually, around the £99 mark. I think I bought 2 from Chiltern. They did me a bit of a deal. I got the 12-footer and I got the 13-footer, and they did me a bit of a deal. But what it's allowed me to do, I've been out and had a go with them. They're much more powerful than what I've got already. The distance masters that I've already got, they're too soft. For my style of casting, for what I'm trying to do, I'm struggling. And I'm not struggling to hit the distance, but I'm just struggling to keep control of my setup. So I've gone away and I've actually bought cheaper rods, but rods that I think will suit me better. So I've been out and had a practice, and I was hitting 100 metres with this, no problem at all, with a wind in my face, really easy. So I'm really happy with that. But it's not just about the rods. Obviously the kit, the reel and stuff that you're using, and the line plays a big part in it. I'm using a 10-pound detection shock leader and 5-pound, which is 020 reel line, loaded right to the lip on a big reel. Works really well. That combination is fantastic. Now, the other thing that I did last week, and I have been doing, is using a stem on my feeder. Now, having done a few tests while I've been there, with a stem, without a stem, I can 100% promise that using these make a bit of a difference. I don't think they actually get you any more distance per se, but they keep your feeder straight and true from the minute it leaves the rod, which I think probably does add distance at the end of the cast. You chuck it out with one of these on, it's like a flighted stem. You chuck it out with one of them on, and it's just arrow straight the whole way. And I think it makes a big difference. My only criticism is, I think that looks a bit ugly and a bit bulky, and it probably makes no difference whatsoever. But in my head, having that with your feeder in the swim, I don't know, it doesn't fill me with confidence, and it just looks a bit ugly. But it works fantastic for getting the feeder out there. And if, like me, you follow lots of stuff on the internet, and you follow stuff that other countries' anglers are doing, more importantly, because I do think that at this long range sort of fishing, the Hungarians, Romanians, you know, people in that part of the world are probably ahead of English anglers. They're doing it every single week. And if you go through any of their Facebook pages, on their match reports, every single angler's got a stem on the feeder, whether they're chucking 30 metres or 100 metres. So I've kind of adopted that. And like I say, rather than stick with that bulky stem, which we've been catching fish with, so it is probably just in my head. I just need to be confident in what I'm using. I've gone for this. Now I've made my own little stems. I've just got some like rigid rig tubing. It's hard to find, so I'm going to let you find it if you want to try it yourself, because it's hard to find and it took me a while to do it. So do your own homework on that one. I can't give you it all away. But what it has done, it's meant that I've got feeders of these big weighted feeders that I can cast a long way. And you'll notice that I'm using methods rather than hybrids or banjo feeders. And that's the one big change I'm going to make for this match. I've been out practicing with a method, and I've always been a method feeder guy. I've always used method feeders, and I've kind of tried to use the banjo more for because I know it's the done thing. However, I've got to use what I'm confident with, and as I'm tweaking things as I'm going on, I'm realising that I need to stick to what I know, and that means going back onto the method. So I've got myself some method feeders from 45 up to 80 grams. Now the 80 grams I can't get them to go in, so they're out. I'm not even gonna take them with me anymore. They're gonna get out of my box straw. They're gone. But the 45s and the 60s, I can get them to go in lovely. And the 60 gram allows me to get to that 100 metre mark quite comfortably, especially with this rod and reel setup. So the 45 gram is going to be what I'm going to use for most of the fishing. But if I need to, I'm going to have another rod setup with a 60 grammer on, so I can get it out there. And I think that is going to be a big thing, because like I say, it's all about controlling the feeder. And I think having these options just puts me in better stead than where I was the other week. Bait choice, I'm not going to do anything different with my bait this week. I was really happy with that Milky Pro. I was really happy with that Milky Pro nut crumb that I used on my pellets. It went on my feeder nice. I was happy with my hook baits. Those orange and pink just seemed to work. It was just about these technical details, and I've ended up spending a couple of £100, don't tell the wife, on new rods. But I think it's going to be money well spent, because if I do this quite a few times over the winter, I've got to be competing, and I felt that was a big area. But ultimately, all this kit means nothing if I don't get my decision making right, and I felt that let me down last week. So I'm eager to try and put things right now. It's going to be a really tough day tomorrow on tomorrow's match. It is bright sunshine outside. The air pressure is 1038 today, which is the highest I've ever known it. I've never known it that high. And we're in this like weird spell of high pressure at the minute. A lot of fisheries have got low oxygen at the minute. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's making the fishing hard. So I think it's going to be a long day tomorrow, and I've got a bit of a plan in my head how I'm going to fish. I'm going to be a bit more structured than I was last week, less reactive. I'm going to follow my own plan. My old mate Stuart, who bashed me up last week, says that Boddington is 90% a mental battle, being mentally sharp and sticking to the plan. And I tend to agree with him, having been there and seen it. Once I wasn't getting bites, my head, I just couldn't keep control of what I was trying to do. And whereas I'm going to go tomorrow with a much better plan in my head of what I need to do to compete and hopefully catch a few fish. So the only way to find out is to get on the bank and give it a go. So join me at Boddington Reservoir tomorrow, where I'll hopefully draw another flyer and hopefully catch a load of fish. There we go, peg 69. A social peg, got the bench behind us. Now, don't fancy this for sure, gotta be honest. Good draw for the section, but this section's basically, the match is broken into 3 sections, and he pays each section like it's a match kind of thing. So because where we were last week, where that dead tree is, tends to be the better area, and then up in the trees in the sanctuary, and then this section's a bit harder, but so he pays it 3 sections to obviously give this section a bit of hope. So we're fishing for the section really today rather than the match. That's good. Tommy there, look. MPEG 67, now 69, and we've got Neil, Russell, Steph, and then Stuart. So interesting. I'm going to be a bit more rigid with my plan today. I'm not going to put any short stuff in, just because I just don't fancy it today. It just feels too cold and miserable. But 3 different rods up, mainly because if that wind gets up, because I fish in line feeders, I can't change my feeder, so I've got another rod up. Pellets and some wafters, simple as that. So let's get on with it. So match number 2 at my Out of the Comfort Zone series. And this time we drew peg 69, which is right where the draw takes place. There's a lovely little bench there, very social looking swim. And I had it on good authority that although it isn't a regular match winner, it is one of the better pegs in that zone. These matches are broken into sort of 2 or 3 zones depending on how many you're fishing, to try and level the playing field a bit, because often, you know what winter carp are like, sometimes fish are in one area and not others. So breaking it down into 3 zones and paying the winners and the second place out in each zone is a fairer way of doing it than just playing the top 2 or top 3 in the match overall, because at one end there could be a load of fish and the other end there's not. So good job there by Pete Caton, who runs the matches. It's a way of spreading the money out and giving everyone something to fish for. Anyway, I was on peg 69 and it looked great to me. You're on a little point, it looked spot on. And I got told reliably by Stuart Polster again that it'd be a tough area, but there's a chance for a few bites. I also spoke to Steve Ringer in the morning. He says, yeah, you're probably not going to win the match from there, but you've got a good chance of getting a few pulls. It's not one of the like dreadful swims sort of thing. So I was more than happy with my draw. Now once again, it's a bit of a section of doom. We had Tommy to my left, who was on the end peg. We had Neil Russell, who does incredibly well at the venue. We had Steph, who does really well. He travels up from like London way. He does really well. And then we've got Stuart Polster, who is like my nemesis at this venue, and he's just, without a doubt, for my money at the moment, he's just the best angler on these matches. He just catches loads of fish. He's got it like tapped. You can just tell, like the way he talks about things, the way he's doing things, he's approaching it with full confidence. So he was the end peg in our section, which obviously meant that I was up against Stuart again, who battered me last week. Now, while I was 4th last week, I felt I did okay. I kind of felt like I sort of got a bit lucky, really. I caught fish straight away, and then I caught a few fish sort of sporadically throughout the session, really, and then one late on down short. I never really felt like I come away with yeah, I've done this right, I've done that wrong. It was one of those days where I just kind of felt like I was a bit lucky, really, to get. I didn't win any money, and that was with good reason. I didn't deserve to win any money, but I had a good idea coming away how I needed to try and approach this match. I think I mentioned in the previous live match about how anglers creep out. So they essentially, every time they don't catch fish, they add a little bit more line on and they go a little bit further. So people do it in 2 metre increments, 1 metre increments, 3 metre increments, just creeping out. So that their feed is always on a fresh bottom, if that makes sense. However, it's a bit funny, really. I struggle to get my head around this. My reason is that I feel like if I'm hitting the clip too hard, how do I know my feeder's not short of the last one? Or I struggle. I don't believe I'm accurate enough to accurately get 2 metres further out. And whether that is the reason why they're doing it, I'm not sure. They're probably just thinking, well, it's definitely not in the same place as the last one. But in my head, I need to be confident in what I'm doing. And I went away and I thought, these are 6-hour matches. I need to take my time. I need to be much more considerate in my approach. So with that in mind, I decided on a different approach altogether and picked 3 lines. Of course, I could vary that up throughout the day if things were obvious, like things were happening obviously, then I could react to them. But my whole plan was to fish at 65 metres, at 85 metres, and then at 100 metres. And I wanted to have 3 definitive lines. And because the matches are 6 hours long at Boddington on a Tuesday, I wanted to have 2 hours at 65 metres, 2 hours at 85 metres, and 2 hours at 100 metres. My thinking was that it'd give me long enough to catch a fish or 2 in each area without going too far out too soon. And if I did it like strictly in my head, it meant that I was always like, I was being strict to myself. Whereas it's so tempting, especially for me, to just chuck it out to 100 metres at the start, catch a fish straight away, and then be like, I've got nothing to do for the rest of the match. Old me would have done that, and I would have probably raced into a 3 fish lead. But this is what I'm trying to learn. This is why I'm going to Boddington. I'm trying to come up with like a plan almost that helps me. And I think that this plan was like something that I could stick to. And although it meant I could, and although I could react to things as the match went on, I was dead set on almost sticking to this plan. So I kicked the match off at 65 metres and I was well happy with my cast. It went in lovely. 45 gram method, 12-foot rod, just went in absolutely beautiful. And I sat there and it got to every single session I've had so far, the match last week and the pre-sessions I've had sort of practicing, filming, however you want to describe it. I've always had a fish first cast a carp. Anyway, and on 7 minutes, my tip's gone round, but it was a bit of a funny little bite. It weren't like one of them that like, oh my God, here we go. And I picked it up and I thought I'd missed it. I thought, oh, I've struck at a liner, I can't believe it. And as I'm reeling in, I'm thinking, no, there's something on the end of this. And Boddington is full of roach, and that was what it was, a little 3-ounce roach. And I couldn't, you know, when you think the first cast is really important, you just want to make sure it goes in nice and just sit there until either you get an indication or that time for the cast is up. And I caught a roach. Oh, here we go. Anyway, back out. And to be honest, the first 2 hours, apart from that roach, passed pretty uneventfully. I never caught any more roach. I never got any indications on my tip, which to be honest, you don't really. Even like when there's a few fish in the area, you don't really get any liners, but nothing really happened. And looking up, nobody's catching anything. To the point where on about, I think it was about 1 hour and 50 into the match, Terry Winston, who was right down in the, I think he was on about peg 88, so a long way down from me, he got the first fish. And then Jack, who was, I think 2 pegs to his left or 3 pegs to his left, he got one at the same time. So all of a sudden, and it's something that a few people had warned me about, there was like something had happened, like a bit of a feeding trigger. 2 people had caught a fish on a lake where there was nothing. There was no fish showing, there was no fish jumping out, there was nothing to suggest that they were feeding, but all of a sudden 2 people had hooked a fish. So them 2 anglers both netted their fish, and then Neil Russell to my right, his tip went round, he's playing it for a while, and unfortunately for Neil, it came off pretty close in. But all of a sudden I'm sat there thinking, I'm going to get one in a minute, By this time I'd actually picked my middle rod up, so I'm out to 85 metres now, and I'm on my first cast at 85 metres, and obviously it's hard to judge how far someone else is casting, but I felt Neil was probably at that kind of range, 80 metres ish, sort of 80 plus metres. And I thought, if I'm on that line, I'm going to get one in a minute. And sure enough, I'm sat there and it's just gone round. Now after a decent battle, nice common in the net, £15 sort of fish, so proper fish. Really chuffed with that, we're up and running, really happy with that.
Told you we'd get one, Tommy.
So I decided to keep going at that range, 85 metres. I've caught my fish, and don't forget I've got my little 2-hour segments for each line. So I've got that in the back of my mind as well. It's nowhere near early enough to make a move yet, in my opinion. I've got to sit tight. Anyway, I've chucked out, and I've had probably 2 more casts. I'm leaving it in for about 25 minutes. I've had 2 more casts, and then my tip's gone round again. So that was actually a little bit of a scrappy common, about £6 or £7, which is small fish for Boddington. It's not anywhere else, but it is at Boddington. But it was 2 fish, and I'm looking up and no one's got 2 fish. By this time, Steph's got 1, Stuart's got 1, Neil obviously lost that 1, I've got 2, and I've heard of another couple of people, oh, and Terry and Jack have got 1. But other than that, we're hearing like nothing's getting caught. So I'm thinking, well, I'm doing well again. Anyway, my 2-hour like time scale of that 85 metre line is coming to an end, and I've noticed that Stuart is chucking way out. I'm thinking this is like, my timing could be perfect here, because he's chucking out and he's had this 1 out there, and I'm thinking I've left that nice and quiet now. I'm going into essentially the best part of the match, and I've managed to leave that area quiet. Anyway, so I've picked up my 100 metre rod and I've whacked it right out, and it's taken 2 casts to get it out there. There's a bit of a real stiff wind blowing in at us, and I probably underestimated how hard I'd need to cast it to get it out there. It was no problem getting the rod, and the feeder and everything was perfect. It was just my effort that was lacking on my first cast or 2. And it wasn't I was hitting the clip lovely, but it was kind of drifting to me right a touch. So I was like, right, reel it in, do it properly. And anyway, I chucked it out, and on 15 minutes of my first cast that settled in, round she went again. So this was another good fish, sort of getting on for £15, big fat mirror, and I'm thinking, God, we're doing well now. We've got 3. I think Stuart might have had 2 at this point. Steph might have been playing his second one, but apart from that, I've got 3 fish, and I'm thinking I've still got best part of 2 hours to go. I'm surely going to get one more. That's what I kept thinking. I kept thinking if I can get to 4 in my head, good chance I could win. My third actual cast on that 100-metre line, and the tip's gone round. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, yes, here we go, this is the day. So anyway, I hooked the fish and I'm playing the fish and I'm reeling him in, just nice and gentle, taking my time, and I'm just reeling it in, and then all of a sudden the fish has changed its angle. It's starting to pull in a different way and kite. So I've changed the angle of my rod. So I was pulling to my left, I've changed the angle to my right, and I've got the shock leader in. And as I've just gone to pick my landing net handle up, I don't know whether I'd just give it a moment of slack or something, but something's happened and the feeder's just flown up in the air, no fish attached. Absolutely devastating. Like I can't tell you how annoying that is when you're at Boddington and that happens to you. Oh my God, you know, when every fish is like precious, and this fish just came off. Now Neil obviously had lost one, Stuart had lost one, someone else had lost one. So whether it was just the day the fish were just negative, they were feeding a bit negatively, I'm not sure, but it was just so unlucky. I felt I'd done everything right, except that maybe when I look back at the footage, as I've picked my landing net handle up, I've kind of maybe just given it just a fraction of slack, and obviously it's just been enough for that hook to come out. Maybe it wasn't hooked properly, I don't know, but it came off. I couldn't believe it. I was just absolutely gutted. But one of them, I still felt like I was good for another bite. Like, even though that was essentially my 4 bites, like that was the target, I still felt I was good for another bite. So I had to shake myself down, get back on it, get my cast in the right place, 100 metres, whack it out there, perfect, straight down on the rest, and I'm like fishing. Would you believe it? My tip's gone round after like a minute, which is rapid. You know, most bites at Boddington are sort of 15 minutes and above at the moment. I've chucked it out, and my tip's gone straight round, and I can't believe I hooked another one. And I'm like, I can't believe it, thank God for that. I'm like, I'm back in it, like if I can get this one out, then I'm probably going to win. Like, it'd take a big effort from someone else to probably beat me at this point. And I get like 6 winds into it, and this one comes off, and I'm like, I can't believe it. I just wanted to cry. Anyway, I reeled in, and I've got this scale on it that was like a £30 carp would have given you it. Do you know what I mean? It was a massive fish. How I come back with a scale, it was a rapid bite, so whether my hook's come out of the feeder as it's hit the water and it's fouled it on the way down, whether it's been snuffling around my feeder and the hook's just washed it up and hooked it around the side, who knows what happened. All I know is it was foul hooked, and I came back with a lovely medal, but it didn't make me feel any better. You know, I'd lost 2 fish in 2 chucks on a rock hard day. I was like absolutely wounded. But again, I'm thinking I've still got plenty of time, and I actually unclipped and I thought, you know what, I just need one more fish. That's what I need. Something's going wrong here. I just need one more fish. So I just took 5 metres off, 105 metres, whacked it out there for the last few casts, and my casting was great. I was really happy with my casting this week. I can't complain. Like, you know, I'm a biggest, everyone knows I'm my own worst critic. You know, even if I'm doing stuff good, I like to analyse it and like think how I can do it better. But my casting was spot on. Even in this strong wind, my casting was good. My feeder was going in lovely. I was hitting the mark, no problem. I was really happy with my setup this week. I can't fault it. The practice that I've been doing has paid off in terms of casting. So I'm really happy with that. Out to 105 metres. But unfortunately, it just felt like it was when the cold weather was just starting to creep in, and I felt like the best of the day had gone. Stuart had now got 3 fish. I think Steph had got 2 at this point, and Stuart actually rang me and says, "Look, two of the fish I've got are massive, like getting on for £20." He's like, "I've got 1 little one and 2 really big ones," and I thought, well, I need another one to even push him close, really, because the 2 bigger fish that I've got are probably 15-pounders, and the other one's maybe £6. So I'm desperate for another fish. But you know when you just feel like it's getting cold around you, and like the best, and we're all looking, and you can just tell everyone's thinking, yeah, we've missed our chance, and I'd certainly missed my chance. So I ended up with 3 fish. Stuart had 3. I think Webby up in the sanctuary had got 2 or 3, but everyone else had got 1 or 2. It fished really hard, and I ended up weighing £34, which was good enough for second on the day. Stuart once again won the match, so hats off to that man. He's just absolutely brilliant there at the moment. He's just fantastic. But I felt like I was kicking myself. I mean, the foul at 1, I think that's just terrible luck, to be honest with you. There's not a lot you can do about that one. But the one I lost at the net, or getting close to the net as I was picking the net up, that one really hurt, because I felt like I'd fished well on this day, and that one little moment cost me winning the match, which is such a shame. Now, a few things are going through my head now, as having had this happen to me. I feel like I need to make the switch to maybe an elasticated feeder now. I've been using inline. I like inline. Like I keep saying, I really like inline. But when you're fishing for, I mean, I was lucky to get 4 or 5 bites. 4 bites in that foul up one. I was lucky to get 4 bites. You know, we're fishing for 2 to 4 fish. I think you've just got to stack the odds in your favour. And the rods I'm using are stiff. And I just feel like I just need every little edge I can get. So I've gone away. I've got myself some elasticated stems. And I'm going to make some long stems and stuff. So I'll show you a bit more about that next week, how I'm going to do that. Because I'm going to go again next week, because I really enjoyed it once more. It's so alien to me how I'm fishing. Long weights, big casts, big feeders. It's just totally opposite to what I normally do. Really enjoying it. Everyone seems to be loving the content, so I'm really appreciate that. But yeah, I'm going to make a few tweaks for next week. We've got a really cold snap coming in, so the fishing could be really hard, even harder than this match. But you know, there's still got to be a winner, and then there's still got to be some losers. So hopefully we can make amends. I was on a good peg again, 69, gives you a chance. So I've had 2 good draws now, peg 90 and peg 69. I feel like I'm heading in the right direction. I fished really well this week, even though I got a bit unlucky. But I still wasn't good enough to beat Stuart.